In this podcast episode, Joe Rogan hosts comedian Kurt Metzger for an extensive and wide-ranging conversation touching on eclectic topics such as John C. Lilly and his dolphin research, Tibetan Buddhism and afterlife concepts, current socio-political dynamics, including the right-wing narrative and propaganda, conspiracies involving elite groups like the Bohemian Grove, UFOs and plasma physics, MK Ultra and mind control, modern art and eugenics, global geopolitics with emphasis on the Middle East and Venezuela, and reflections on religion, technology, and population concerns. The discussion flows from scientific curiosities to deeply conspiratorial and cultural phenomena, often blending humor with dark societal critiques. The episode opens with a focus on John C. Lilly, the neuroscientist known for inventing isolation tanks and his controversial dolphin research. Kurt shares anecdotes about the sexual behavior of dolphins in captivity, including stories of dolphins exhibiting amorous and sometimes aggressive sexual behaviors, and the ethical quandaries faced in studying these intelligent mammals confined in unnatural conditions. There's a poignant mention of Peter the dolphin, who reportedly took his own life in captivity, a tragic demonstration of the psychological toll on such creatures. The discussion highlights the complexity of dolphins' intelligence, their cerebral cortex size, and their communication, which remains largely undeciphered. The episode touches on how captivity impacts dolphins, comparing them to slaves or dogs of the sea, and how human interference complicates their natural behaviors. The conversation then moves into esoteric territory, discussing Tibetan Buddhist concepts such as the bardos, transitional states between death and rebirth. The bardo of becoming is described, with karmic visions drawing a soul towards the conditions of its next birth, including flashes involving parents and the environment for conception. Joe and Kurt muse about the mystical ability to go back in time to witness one's conception, a metaphor for deep, perhaps meditative, inquiry into origins and consciousness. This segues into whether these experiences are real or induced by meditation and hypnosis, with the guest acknowledging the fusion of ancient mysticism and modern understanding. The discussion turns sharply to current political climates, focusing primarily on the fracture within the American right wing. Kurt highlights observations that there was never a true unified front, but rather competing factions scrambling to control narratives in the media and social networks. Social media bounty systems, whereby individuals are paid to promote or push particular narratives, especially on controversial topics like Israel-Palestine, are examined as a modern tool of propaganda warfare. This orchestrated information battle includes fake accounts, bots, and mercenaries who operate like soldiers in a media battlefield, often aiming for engagement and financial rewards. The implications of these practices on public discourse and trust are discussed with skepticism and concern. A vivid exploration of elite secret societies follows, focusing on Bohemian Grove and the famous large owl statue, often misidentified as Molech. The hosts discuss the ceremonial cremation of care ritual, where members symbolically burn their care to continue business as usual despite moral implications. The historic and occult symbolism behind the owl, thought to represent wisdom, but also connected mythologically to various ancient deities like Athena or Minerva, is elaborated. References to secret fraternal orders, bowls of sacrifice, and pagan rituals provide a dark window into the symbolic rites sometimes associated with the powerful elite. There is also speculation about the molestation of the term Molech, its biblical connotations with sacrifice, and its reinterpretations in modern conspiracy circles. Returning to dolphins, Kurt shares vivid, sometimes humorous, accounts of their complex sexual behaviors under human care, including a protocol for handling dolphins exhibiting sexual advances towards humans, like echolocating knees. The biological curiosity intertwines with ethical discussions as they lament the captivity and use of dolphins as experimental or military tools. The comparison of dolphin promiscuity and infanticide to a 60s animal lifestyle illustrates both fascination and discomfort with natural animal instincts in a human-imposed environment. The segment touches on how dolphins have been weaponized historically, reflecting on their tragic status as prisoners of humanity. The conversation touches on Nicki Minaj's multiple alter egos and the broader cultural phenomenon of personas in entertainment. The host discusses her creatively constructed characters, like Roman Zolansky and Harajuku Barbie, tying these psychological identities to coping mechanisms, trauma, and artistic expression. This segues into broader considerations of alter egos in celebrity culture, including comparisons to figures like Miley Cyrus's Miley versus Hannah Montana Dynamic and other performers adopting alternate identities for creative freedom or protection. Kurt and Joe discuss geoengineering practices, such as cloud seeding in the United Arab Emirates, questioning the common narrative that catastrophic weather events are solely due to climate change. They reveal that the UAE actively enhances rainfall artificially, bringing skepticism to some climate change claims propagated by authorities. The podcast explores the notion that weather manipulation has been weaponized or employed secretly in various geopolitical contexts, including Africa and the Middle East. They also touch on Operation Satan, a UK geoengineering test involving sulfur dioxide released into the stratosphere, which has sparked conspiracy theories despite being a small-scale experiment. The guest delves into advanced scientific topics, discussing fusion reactor research and plasma physics. They highlight the late MIT professor Nuno Laurio, who made significant progress in plasma containment theories essential for viable fusion energy. The infamous Nazi bell, a rumored plasma-based device purportedly developed during World War II for exotic physics applications, is examined. The conversation underscores the complexity and potential transformative nature of plasma science, including its dominant presence in the visible universe. The possibility of plasma physics enabling futuristic technologies, including AI and exotic propulsion systems, is speculated upon. The hosts examine MKUltra and related mind control programs, discussing how hypnosis and trauma-based conditioning might produce programmable individuals capable of compartmentalized violence or shifts in personality. There is recognition that psychological manipulation techniques date back to ancient Egypt and have evolved into modern covert programs. The conversation references monarch programming, trauma indoctrination in cults, and how sexual abuse is tragically employed as a control mechanism for super soldiers. They also consider how hypnotic regression can falsify memories, posing challenges in discerning real versus implanted experiences. The conversation addresses geopolitical tensions, especially concerning Israel, Gaza, and Venezuela. The complexities of proxy wars, misinformation campaigns, and the creation of terror organizations such as ISIS are discussed, highlighting that these groups often receive aid or tolerance from unexpected quarters, complicating public perception. The episode delves into drug smuggling allegations tied to military strikes in Colombia and Venezuela, noting inconsistencies in official narratives. Political assassinations, including the case of Charlie Kirk and others, and suppression of information around these events illustrate the dark intersections of power, violence, and media control. The podcast explores religious themes and their intersections with modern technology, including the concept that AI could potentially become a godlike entity. Discussions touch on alternative theologies such as Christ Penelope, a humorous and eccentric take involving fart-based healing, as well as serious considerations of how AI might simulate or replace traditional spiritual figures like Jesus, marking it rather as a Luciferian counterfeit. The biblical canon, lost texts like the Book of Enoch, and the evolution of religious ideas are mused upon, noting how religion has often been appropriated by political powers as a tool of social control. Kurt brings up discussions about demographic collapse fears, voiced by certain technocratic and eugenicist circles, including some influential and wealthy families involved in promoting fertility technologies to prevent societal decline. The conversation delves into the controversial advocacy for genetic selection and high IQ embryo preference as a modern form of eugenics, reminiscent of problematic 19th and 20th century movements. These views are tied to a belief in AI as a future godlike force and a techno-Puritan worldview that is ostensibly atheist but spirituality-oriented toward technological salvation or singularity. Throughout the conversation, Joe and Kurt employ dark humor and satire to navigate extremely sensitive and sometimes shocking subjects, from celebrity scandals to secret occult rituals. They challenge mainstream narratives on everything from modern art's value to political allegiances, often questioning official explanations and media framing. The guest shares personal anecdotes and cultural observations, creating a tapestry of existential skepticism, conspiracy theory discourse, and irreverent comedy. The topic of unidentified aerial phenomena is discussed with reference to plasma physics, quantum theory, and the nature of perception. They explore ideas about interdimensional entities, plasma as a misunderstood fourth state of matter, making up most visible universe matter, and how consciousness shapes reality. The concept that some UFO sighting phenomena could be consciousness projections or energetic sigils is proposed, acknowledging the role of cultural conditioning and individual perception in interpreting these mysterious experiences. The conversation addresses the persistence of elite bloodlines and secret societies, drawing parallels from the past to contemporary influence. References to the Collins family, both real and fictionalized in pop culture, the lore surrounding dragons and royalty, and ancient Egyptian mind control methods underscore a belief in enduring dynastic and occult power. They dissect how privilege, heredity, and ritualistic power claims perpetuate control and influence across generations, mixing history with mythology. The hosts touch on trauma-based mind control within notorious cults such as Rajneeshpuram, noting the omission of child abuse narratives in documentaries and media. The mechanisms by which trauma fracturing enables control and obedience are examined, along with the use of hypnosis and dissociation in such systems. They acknowledge the difficulty of confronting these dark realities due to societal denial, political suppression, and the risks faced by whistleblowers or survivors. Towards the end, there is reflection on the difficulty of discerning truth in the era of pervasive misinformation, corporate media agendas, and social media manipulation. The hosts express frustration with cancel culture, censorship, and the polarized political environment. They question the integrity of narratives around vaccination, COVID-19, and other public health measures, asserting the importance of skepticism, but also the challenge posed by prevailing discourse controls. The conversation reveals a distrust in official institutions and mainstream explanations, emphasizing the need for critical inquiry, even if it leads into uncomfortable or conspiratorial territory.